Well, thanks everyone for jumping
Very
on with us
amazing.
here. I'm Steve McMullen. I look after sales for Canada for Liteline. Done a few of these and they're fun, right? They're short and sweet and we get to the point with the new product updates and we allow everybody to get on with their day and hopefully retain all of the goodies that we're bringing to them. So today's, this one's really kind of cool and it's got some history to it. I won't go into too much detail on that, but I will unpack what it actually means for us because it does solve some, I guess, some age-old requirements that we've had for this program. And today we're talking about the SlimLED MULTI program. Now we've had it for a handful of years, and there we go. We've had this program for about 5 years actually, existing in a 4-inch profile, and we're going to unpack what that is, and then we'll get into the expansion. But the 4-inch SlimLED MULTI was developed out of kind of a necessity to have a solution that wasn't what our SlimLED would do. Now, if we look at what the SlimLED's product attributes were, it was an integrated LED, a low profile, a wide distribution beam on the product as far as performance, and it had an install characteristic that was really unique. So here we are getting away from the downlight or the downlight style where you had something recessed into the ceiling, some metal that you had to fit in with a lamp inside of a socket, and then of course a trim would attach to the front of it. The integrated solution was with wing clips that would hold onto the substrate and a driver that would be recessed up in the ceiling as well. So again, low profile and good output, but that doesn't cover all applications. There's a challenge that could exist where either you have junction boxes existing, that could be simply because they were there previously in a drywall type ceiling or some other penetrable type of ceiling, or it could be concrete. You can't recess into concrete, that's pretty tough. So what we've done is developed a product that could approach these obstacles with multiple solutions. And that hence is why we had the product aptly titled SlimLED MULTI. Now you have a couple of mounting options with it, and that was the key with this 4-inch option. It would mount to a standard octagon or junction box, allowing for that nice low profile look to be utilized in that application. Also in the box came the rabbit ears of those butterfly clips to be able to fit into or retrofit into a traditional type of can, and it would hold itself in place that way. So multiple application as far as install. As well, we included 3 types of trims in that same box. So now you had multiple trims, you had multiple application in that same low profile solution. So perfect name for a product that has sold very well for the past 5 years. Optional trims available in the square style, and again, kind of a rather synonymous product attribute, categorization, wet location, Energy Star, lifetime J8, that whole stuff, right? It's always been on there. One thing I'd always like to provide some attention is that sub-ceiling selectable CCT, right? That's a key thing that Liteline really builds into a lot of the products that we can have the real estate to do so. SlimLED MULTI 4-inch had that. Those magnetic trims would come down and you can adjust that CCT from below the ceiling. Perfect, great solution. Now, when we get to where we are today, this slide here, roughly about 700 lumens coming through on that high output version of that 4-inch model, but you're still restricted in your aperture size, right? And the way that the driver and the assembly and the chipset would work could only push light throughout that size of aperture. And again, you're dealing with a wide angle beam. So it's tough to necessarily improve optics or do anything with that. And you are limited to the real estate of the back end of that fixture, what's going up into the junction box. So the mounting was pretty straightforward. That face plate would come off, would reveal provisions to screw up into the junction box, which would suck the fixture up to the ceiling. And then of course the magnet trim would pop back on. So there are some limitations there. When we move forward through the program, the request comes right away. And this is 5 years ago, it says, we need it in a higher output. How can we get it higher output and a wider aperture? Okay, well that lends a very significant challenge to the design team here. And we've got Andy joining us, and little before his time slightly, but it's a real thing. How do you make a 6-inch luminaire fit into a 4-inch junction box? It's a tough thing. So it's been in our engineering it's been in the wheelhouse of our engineering team for some time, and that's why it's exciting to be able to talk about some of the updates here now today. So solving that problem is rather tricky, and I'll leave this slide up, but I'm also going to unpack this box here and describe what we've done to really find this solution. Just quick thing on the packaging, it's got a nice viewing window, and of course the product attributes are on the side and the back, so that's great for merchandising. I've got a powered sample just for sample purposes. We don't really care about that too much for today's sake, but I'll talk about the products in a sec here. Comes with a mounting bracket and appropriate wire nuts and connecting screws. But out of the box, there are some subtle differences compared to the 4-inch, and we had to redesign this for the very obvious reason that I've been describing. Let's talk about the product here in a sec. First things first, not a magnetic trim. We've got a twist and lock steel trim that goes on this. Now, the advantage of that is it gives us, of course, the perfect placement to hold this thing on. You know, this isn't coming down.
Lift it up a little bit. I'm sorry, I can't see it. Oh, that's awesome.
There we go.
Thank you.
I was asking Laura, saying, hey, I don't really know where my screen is, so just yell at me if
that's
if you
perfect. Thank you.
So the twist and lock trim ensures that we have, you know, no possibility of this trim jarring loose or coming off. But what it does do is it also covers that CCT selector switch. So it's, again, just like the 4-inch, we've got a 5-position CCT selecting switch on the side of the fixture, sub-ceiling accessible, and it's got a gasketing cover to it to maintain a wet location rating for this luminaire. So that's one thing. Now that's just carrying forward from what we've done with products in the past, is having that sub-ceiling selectability. The real magic to this thing is how we constructed the driver and the chip assembly to get the light through this fixture. There is no remount driver. What we've actually done is taken the electronics and basically mirrored what we do in our SlimLED and our Luna program and built that driver. The driver electronics are actually built into the chassis of the fixture around the edge. Okay, so that's really cool. We're not using, it's you know, not driver on board, you know, it's not integrated to it. It's actually around the edge. The driver components are inside the chassis. So we can still produce the light from the side and refract it through, but the driver assembly is built into the chassis, which is really, really neat. So that's one of the things that we've done. Now that does force, you know, a subtle, the depth of the fixture is a little deeper. You know, we're less than an inch to get down from the ceiling, but still, I mean, that's the characteristics to be able to achieve the outputs that we have. All right, so that's the engineering. That's the engineering side of you'd have screw holes within the luminaire that would allow you to pull it up. We can't do that with this, right? We've got electronics and components in here, and we've got a lens that refracts light through. So you can't put 2 holes in it. So what do? Well, the engineering team developed a clip system that ensures that this is going to pull up against the ceiling. And I'll move over to the back here. I'm sure most on the call have run into it when you're installing a surface mount fixture. Typically, they come with a type of mounting bracket. Now, this has provisions for screw holes and a variety of ways to land this against a junction box. The challenge typically is that, I'll just say the drywall, just for sake of this argument here, the drywall can be mispositioned, or it can be cut out, or it can be chipped out in ways that don't allow brackets to pull against the ceiling. A lot of times they'll pull through, they'll snug up to the junction box fine, but now it's not up against the ceiling. And if you're trying to screw those screws through, it's very tough to catch the lip of the threading. We've oversized this adapter. Okay, so this adapter now is going to ensure that it's going to catch on the substrate. So when we screw this up to the junction box, it's going to catch onto that drywall. And there's an inner provision here, circular. The sizing of this matches perfectly on the butterfly clips that are attached to the back of the SlimLED MULTI 6. And when we push these things together, it takes a bit of pressure to do it, but there is no way that that's coming off. But more importantly, it's going to ensure that that pulls against the ceiling, right? So those clips are positioned about a ½ inch down from where the adapter will be. So it's going to pull it directly against the ceiling, holding it nice and flush and tight. Now, if your ceiling isn't level, or if your ceiling is all bumpy, I mean, that's another thing that you'll have to work with. But from a fixture and a mounting perspective, it's going to be on there perfectly and held tight. So that's the innovation that we built in for the mounting piece. So now it takes care of how do you put a 6-inch fixture with what would typically be a driver and a chipset assembly that would go up into the junction box. How do you do all of that without compromising that capacity in that junction box or having a misfit? So that's really cool. Another thing to add to that is the way that this is designed means that if there's branch wiring or anything else that's in that junction box, you're not compromising. You know, very, very little of that box wiring capacity is compromised, other than the connection that's made here to ensure this product is going to be functional. So those are really the key elements of the 6-inch version and how it differs from the 4. And on the screen here, I'm sure everyone's probably grazed over it and read. The lumen output is significant. We're now hitting that 1,000 lumen marker at 3K, which is awesome. That was one of the big requests when the 4-inch came out, but there were just, you know, technological and physical limitations at that time. So now we're able to do that. Again, CCT selectability, wet location. We've got the white trim comes with the product in the box. The black and the brush nickel are sold separately. There is a retrofit kit available, so we can put this into a can if need be, if there's something existing that we want to retrofit into. It just doesn't come in the box. Other than that, the 120 to 277 is definitely in the engineering department, and we should see that by Q1. And fire rated is always an interesting conversation. For the sake of the multi, it does adopt fire rating of the junction box that it's attaching to. So one just needs to ensure that should it be plastic, it carries a true 2-hour burn rating, and with metal, it's inherent to that box as it stands. I think that's most of, took down a couple of notes just to make sure. Let's see, subsetting selectability. Yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell the attributes of the product and the development. The install is a little bit different, but certainly a lot of thought put into how to really go above and beyond to make sure that we're doing everything we can to ensure a good fit, an airtight lock, and I don't know, make sure that the product performs as we want it to. In inventory, ready to go. So see your local representative, whomever that might be, where you're from, or you can reach out to us directly, of course, and we'll make sure to point you in the right direction to get this in your hands.
Awesome.
Short and sweet.
Thanks,
yeah,
Steve.
about 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
Thanks for sharing that with all of us. Now, if anybody has any Q&A, pop it down in the box below and be happy to answer it. So far, so good.
That was either that good. I think the coolest part is that mounting mechanism. You know, I've done a lot of surface mounts, and they're so tricky. You know, especially when the threadings don't catch. Oh, yeah. It drives me insane.
And it's also really nice that it's also nice that the driver's not in the junction box. You got lots of room to work there as well, right? Ample space for install.
Oh, I did fail to mention one thing that may come up as a question. The 3.5 and 4-inch size junction boxes, you know, on the diameter. So it's morning here and the cats are running around. Sorry, 3.5 and 4-inch junction box diameter sizes are good. 1.5 inch depth you will require, and that is only a requirement for the clips themselves to pull up into that adapter. So that is one thing. A pancake box question came up in one of the earlier conversations, and this will not fit in the pancake box. You need at least 1.5 inch depth.
Yeah, good point. The other question that came up is 0 to 10 volt dimming possible. So yes, that's going to be available in March. We're going to have a 277 volt, 0 to 10 volt dimming version. It's going to be a separate version, I believe. I don't think it's going to be a universal driver on that. We have Hanny on here to confirm. If I'm wrong there, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, it's 122.77, 0 to 10 volt dimming. That's right.
Oh, it's universal. Okay, so that will be available around March. The next question that came up, are there future plans to sell the 6-inch with all 3 trims? So there are other colors available. They're not going to be in the same box, so it's a separate SKU.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Yeah, I think I did miss saying that. Brush nickel and black available right now.
Yeah. A question that we got on our last presentation on this is whether we will have square. So that's a no, we're not going to have square in this because it would have a round LES and a square edge, which we didn't think looked super nice. So we're not going to be moving forward with square at this time.
Yeah, it's a pretty wide aperture too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and Hanny just mentions in there in the chat that on-cloud dimmer and 3-way can bring it into the on-cloud ecosystem, and that is very true and super awesome to be able to pull a product like this in when, in some cases, those mounting limitations can be there, especially concrete.
Since we have no other questions coming in, we could either do an AMA where you can ask Steve or myself or Hanny anything you want about Liteline for the next minute before we close this down. And if we don't have any more questions, I think even though we still are sitting with 50 participants listening in, I think we can close it down. So any questions at all? Liteline questions? All right, so I think we're good. Steve, thanks so much and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Hanny and Laura. Talk to you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.